Bore da pawb a chroeso. Good morning everyone and welcome to this multi-location meeting of the Environment, Regeneration and Streetscene Services Scrutiny Committee on the 9th of February 2024. I'm Councillor Sean Percy. I'll be chairing the meeting this morning. Please, as usual, ensure your phones are switched to silent during the meeting. And if you wish to speak, please raise your electronic hand. We've only got 2 cabinet members in the chamber, so I'm sure if you wish to speak, you can raise your hand in person as well. Members and officers, just be advised that since the publication of the Cabinet Board agenda, item 15, residential development land at Blaen Baglan, has been deferred to a later meeting, so that will not be considered by Cabinet Board today or scrutinised today by our committee. For the purposes of declarations, I'd like to confirm we're scrutinising items 7, 11 and 12 on the Cabinet papers. So I'll move now on to declarations of interest, agenda item 2. Are there any declarations of interest from members?
I see no indications, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Members, as usual, if you feel you need to make a declaration during an item, please indicate and we'll deal with it at that point. So I'll now move on to agenda item 3, which is the minutes of the previous meetings on pages 5 to 10 of the scrutiny agenda pack. Could I have a proposal and a seconder for to propose an accurate record, please?
Yeah, I propose, Chair.
Councillor Tim Bowen, and a seconder, please.
Happy to second, Chair.
Councillor Nathan Goldup-John, thank you. So we'll now move on to pre-decision scrutiny of Cabinet Board papers, and we'll start with agenda item 7, which is Swansea Bay City Deal, Neath Talbot led projects update. So I believe there's a presentation from officers on this one. Simon, are you taking this?
I will be asking Lisa to take this, if that's okay, Chair, and she'll be then supported by both Brett and Una.
Brilliant. Over to you then, Lisa.
Thank you, Chair. We're going to provide an update on the Neath Talbot-led City Deal project, which is the low carbon growth, support and innovation, low carbon growth, and the Homes as Power Station. So I will now share my screen. We've got a presentation, and then Brett, who's the programme manager for the low carbon growth, and Una, the programme manager for the HAPS, Homes as Power Stations, will present, and we can take questions. I will share my screen. And slideshow from the beginning. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, we can see it in the chamber. Deal.
Okay, thank you. I'll hand over to Brett to give an introduction and overview of the support and innovation, low carbon growth and progress to date. Thanks, Brett.
Thank you very much, Lisa, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you on behalf of myself and my colleague, Una Gavigan, for allowing us this opportunity to talk to you this morning. So I'm the programme manager for the Supporting Innovation Low Carbon Growth programme, as Lisa indicated. And if we could have the first slide, please, Lisa. So if you look at the graphic on the left-hand side of your screen, this really encapsulates what the £64 million Supporting Innovation Low Carbon Growth programme covers. So it's about creating an innovation infrastructure, allowing individuals and businesses to grow their ideas within the Neath Talbot area. It's about helping industry to reduce the carbon emissions, creating energy positive commercial buildings, and developing a low emission transport strategy, which can be utilised across the region. It's also about looking at the next generation of air quality monitors, which can offer an incredible cost saving for local authorities. And all of this is encapsulated in a collaborative working environment between government, academia, industry and the local authority. And aligned with this are integrated skills and talent development to support the requirement for skilled professionals going forward to support not only the Swansea Bay City Deal projects and programme activity, but also areas that might arise through the Celtic Freeport activity that will be taking place in the future. So under the Supporting Innovation Low Carbon Growth programme, I have responsibility for 8 projects now, and you can see those listed on the right-hand side of the screen. I'll take you through each of those in turn to give you a broad overview of what each project entails. The first 4 are large infrastructure projects, so buildings that will be located in the Neath Port Talbot area. And then the 4 projects at the bottom, which I consider to be the smaller projects, I will touch on each of those in turn. So Lisa, if we could move on to the Bay Technology Centre, please. Hopefully, a number of you will have already seen this facility in person. It has been completed. It was handed over to Neath Port Talbot in the summer of last year. We had the official, in 2022, we had the official opening of the tech centre last June. So this is Wales's first energy net positive commercial building, and by that I mean that it generates more electricity than it consumes in its day-to-day use. So this is a building consisting of 24 offices, state-of-the-art offices, and 8 laboratory spaces where companies can either take an office or an office and a laboratory, or just a laboratory to undertake their activities. And it's a 3-storey state-of-the-art building. You will see from the, hopefully you can see from the image in the bottom right-hand corner, the facade of the Bay Technology Centre, and those black panels that you can see between the various windows are vertical photovoltaic panels, which are helping to generate a lot of the energy for the building. We're currently at 50.4% occupancy. So this is for 7 companies and organisations. They've taken 11 offices and 2 labs within the building. It's a multi-award winning building already. We've won 3 quite prestigious awards back in 2022. And this facility really addresses the demand for flexible mixed use space. And we've got a number of innovative companies located within the building that are starting to spin out products. And the excess energy that's being created by the facility will be used to generate hydrogen at the hydrogen centre, which is just located across the car park from that facility. So moving on to the second large infrastructure project. This is the Switch Harbourside building. Now, Switch is an acronym for the South Wales Industrial Transition from Carbon Hub. So this is a collaborative research facility which is supporting the steels and metals industry and associated supply chains to decarbonise. It will also be working with the glass industry and others, so it's not just focused on one area. Neath Port Talbot will own this building, and Swansea University will be the tenant and the operator of the facility. It consists of a number of different workspaces, pilot line, lab spaces, scanning electron microscopes, so state-of-the-art equipment. Part of the grant is to be utilised to purchase a number of specialist equipment facilities that will be housed within the building. But like all of the Swansea-based City Deal infrastructure projects, it's currently subject to an increase in construction costs down to increased inflation, increase in materials costs and other activities. So we're currently going through an exercise where we're optimizing the space of the facility to try and bring down the cost as much as possible. You can see in the bottom right-hand corner an artist's impression of the facility. This has changed slightly in that the roof is now more of a stepped feature to help on save costs. But this gives you a general idea of what the facility will look like. And we're hoping that this will be constructed by the end of 2026. If you could have the next slide, please, Lisa. So now we have the advanced manufacturing production facility. So if you recall on the first slide when I was talking about the Bay Technology Centre, that comprised a series of offices and lab space where businesses would generally start up their business and we would help them to grow. They would expand and then outgrow the Bay Technology Centre. They could then potentially move into the advanced manufacturing production facility, which is more focused around giving them larger spaces where they can manufacture the products that they've been working on. So this is a hybrid facility of industrial units, pilot line, and it would help to also bring together supply chains where they can manufacture a single product. So again, this is the collaborative environment with industry, academia and government working together. We are currently going through starting to put together a procurement activity where we will procure the operator at an early stage to help inform the design of the structure. Co-located onto this same space will be one of the latest projects that was approved in December of last year, which is the National Net Zero Skills Centre of Excellence. I appreciate this is a busy slide, but you only need to really focus on the 4 columns in the middle of the screen. This came about because of the need that was obvious for future requirements of skilled workforce to support, as I said previously, floating offshore wind, free port activity, and all of the 9 city deal programs and projects. So this is going to be a phase 1 of a multi-phase approach. We were only able to secure 5.3 million at this initial stage. And when you compare it to other facilities in England, for example, they're setting up similar facilities with a budget of 60 million. So we see this as very much as a first stepping stone to creating a much larger physical facility, hopefully on the Baglan Energy Park. But this will create a number of jobs, but also importantly, it will train up to 3,500 individuals to benefit the region going forward. So, and the important thing here is that this facility will not duplicate existing provision, and it will be an industry-led facility. So moving on to what I call the 4 smaller projects. So the first one is the Hydrogen Stimulus Project. This is working in collaboration with the University of South Wales at the Hydrogen Centre, located next door to the Bay Technology Centre and the Baglan Bay Innovation Centre. So this is where we're going to be producing green hydrogen from the excess energy from the Bay Technology Centre, and that hydrogen will be used to power a number of council hydrogen powered vehicles. It was originally envisaged that this would support Kangoo hydrogen vans, but they've not materialised in the marketplace, so we're currently looking at what would be the most viable option for us. We're starting discussions with JCB about bucket diggers that can be used within the materials processing areas of the council, and also mid-sized vans that could be hydrogen powered. The low emission vehicle charging strategy links in with the Hydrogen Stimulus Project, and it's also looking about how we as a local authority can develop a strategy which will be applicable to residents and commercial premises, and that takes into account a number of the different scenarios that we find within sort of like housing developments. For instance, you know, residents may have their own drive, so it makes it easier for them to charge their vehicle if they have an electric vehicle. But likewise, you've also got to consider the scenario where people live in a row of terraced houses. They may not have allocated parking in front of their building. So how do we address the challenges that may be faced by those types of buildings and structures? So this will hopefully develop a strategy which then could be rolled out across the region. The next project is the air quality monitoring project. So you can see an example of these low cost devices. They retail for about £1,000 when you compare to the much larger devices that cost around £75,000 that can be placed in various locations of a local authority. These can actually be attached to individual lampposts, so you can get quite localized monitoring of the air quality in specific areas. We currently have 70 of these deployed across Neath, Port Talbot, and we've just received the first years of data that's currently being analysed, and we'll be able to publish that in due course. The final project is a property development fund. So this is focusing on the Port Talbot waterfront enterprise zone. So this is about helping existing companies to upgrade their facilities or build new facilities to support the research, development and innovation infrastructure in the county. We were heavily oversubscribed during round 1, which was encouraging, but a number of those projects withdrew for a variety of reasons. So we've launched a second round in December last year, and we're currently assessing those expressions of interest. So now I'd like to hand over to my colleague Una Gavigan, who's going to talk to you about one of the other Swansea Bay City Deal projects. Thank you.
Hi, good morning everyone. Yes, so I'm Una Gavigan. I manage the Homes as Power Stations project. So just to give a little bit of background about the project, it's a regional project covering the 4 local authorities across South West Wales. There are 4 main benefits associated with the project. So just to cover what they are, first of all, it's future-proofing 10,300 homes. I think it's kind of important to point out we're not funding 10,300 homes. The whole essence of the project is to create test bed houses where we will learn from those. We will be sharing that information to encourage the take-up of the various technologies. So the main investment objectives are to increase affordable warmth, to reduce fuel poverty, improve health and well-being, and to support a regional supply chain of the proven technologies. So there are 3 investments associated with the project. It's the £15 million City Deal Fund, then the leveraging of the 115 million public sector funding. So this is the local authority and registered social landlord grants, which would include EcoFlex funding and the optimised retrofit programme. In addition, we will be leveraging 375 million of private sector funding, and this will be funding from private sector developments and private home owners. I think it's important to point out it isn't a standalone project. It's very much working across all sectors to ensure that we reach the benefits of the project. So this is just one slide to show as simply as possible the benefits in relation to the project, and these will be measured and monitored over the period of the not just the delivery but the years following delivery. So that will take us up to 2032, 2033. Just showing the 3 elements of funding: the financial incentives fund, the technical monitoring and evaluation contract, and then the supply chain development fund. Next slide, Lisa. So the financial incentives funds, this was 5.75 million, and we did the first call for applications, and we've awarded £3.7 million, which will support 361 houses across the 4 local authority areas. Is installing a variety of technology, and we're looking at different types of fabrics of houses, and then we will be doing monitoring on those to share the lessons learned. For Neath Talbot, we've awarded funding at the moment to 3 different developments. You will see 2 of them are retrofits, and then one of them is the new build over with the Pobble development, the Neath Workmen's Club in Neath. There's 639,000 left to be allocated, so this will be in the next call of funding. So the other 2 pots of funding, the technical monitoring and evaluation. So this was a procurement activity, and it was awarded to Cardiff University's Welsh School of Architecture. So as I mentioned, it's looking at the different property types, the different fabrics, technologies and tenures, and looking at the learning that's associated with the schemes. All the RSLs, local authorities, are at different parts of their journey of learning, so it gives the opportunity to share on a wider basis some of the really sort of interesting information that will encourage and speed up the uptake of technologies to meet the project objectives. The third pot of funding is the £7 million Supply Chain Development Fund. So we'll be looking to launch this in the next few months, very much working with the business teams across the 4 local authority areas and Business Wales, part of Welsh Government, to scope what that funding will look like. But what we will be aiming to achieve is to create at least a supply chain of 1 or more of the technologies associated with the project. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. That's the end of the presentation, the overview, and we're quite happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for the presentations there. Yeah, we had a few questions from members in pre-briefing, and I imagine there might be a couple more as well. after the presentations too. So I think my first indication was from Councillor Cathy James. Cathy?
Thanks, Chair. One of my questions was answered during the presentation, so thank you for that. The other one was around the Net Zero Centre of Excellence, the training facility. Given what's happening with Tata Steel and the requirement probably for a great amount of additional training there, and the fact that they have talked about the fact they want to upskill people and there might be funding available, I wondered if you were exploring the possibility of accessing some of that funding as an extra source.
Yes, thank you, Councillor, for your question. It's an incredibly relevant question given what's going on at the current moment in time, and we are actively working with the Tata Transition Board and have put the National Net Zero Skills Centre of Excellence down as one of the potential projects that we'd like to seek funding for, and that would be to support phase 2 activity of that facility. Yes.
That's great, thanks. It's good to hear.
Excellent, thank you. Did any other members have any questions they wish to ask? Laura?
Hi, thanks. Mine's also down the Tata route. So I just wanted to know, could the recent Tata news affect any of these projects in a negative way?
Thank you, Councillor.
Do you want me to take that one, Brett?
Yeah.
Okay, Simon. Yeah.
I think, I mean, obviously the news from Tata is disappointing, I suppose. And they're a major employer in the area. Significant amount of staff employed, both direct and indirect. And I think at the moment, what we're trying to do is to understand where we are with that in terms of assessing the supply chain, particularly, and the indirect people who are employed within Tata. The Transition Board is obviously working hard to understand the potential impacts of the Tata proposals. And I think, as Brett has outlined and Una, I think actually these projects become even more important because if you look just at a couple of the examples, the Switch project, for example, which looks at materials and R&D within the steel industry, well, if they go down the path that they're suggesting and they end up with an electric arc furnace, there's going to be an awful lot of R&D around that and making sure the materials they're pushing out are the correct ones for the market. And the Switch facility would be an important part of that. You've got the Advanced Manufacturing Centre, which at the moment is scheduled to go on to Baglan Energy Park. That'll allow local companies to diversify their product and get involved in new markets, particularly those perhaps who are in the supply chain for Tata at the moment, who might be able to shift production and get some support along with that. And it'll also help to kickstart the Baglan Energy Park. And I mean, there's a significant tract of land there, and we're hoping that the Advanced Manufacturing Centre can be part of that. The Technology Centre offers space for new buildings and spin-outs to develop, and then you've got the supply chain opportunities within HAPS. So I think in terms of diversifying our economy and expanding our economy, alongside all the new work that's going to happen with the free ports, etc., then I think these are going to be very important projects that will help underpin that new parcel of work.
Thanks, Simon.
Well, thank you for that, Simon. I've got two more indications. Councillor Robert Wood. Rob?
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to know, given the allocation on low emissions for 500,000, which obviously ties into charging points for cars and things, and this is something that we've looked at on this particular committee, with a lot of the houses being of older design, and I mean, it's one of those things, whatever you sort of go for, if you want to sort of pass over a pavement, it's going to cause some sort of issue. I just wondered if any funding had come forward to look at that specifically, especially with the terraced houses that we have, in the county borough, because, we want to encourage people to go more for electric vehicles. And this is a key thing in older neighbourhoods that we've got to sort of try and get across. So obviously, the more money we put into research and development on that, into finding a solution, the quicker we can sort of help to decarbonise. I just wondered, is there anything in the pipeline or anything that officers are looking at? Thanks.
Thanks, Rob. I don't know who wants to pick this up.
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
Councillor Wood for that question. So Nigel Morris, who's leading on this particular project under the Silca umbrella, organised an event back in November, I believe it was, at the Tata Steel Training Academy, where we invited a number of companies who produce the various options for on-street charging, whether that's running underneath pavements or with the arms that reach across a pavement, also fixed charging points in the road. So we had a number of companies talking to us about the variety of options available, but also in the room were Welsh Government, who said that there was funding available to set up a couple of trials within the local authority, so we could install a couple of these different technologies to run trials and see which performs the best. So we are actively pursuing different routes of funding to support this activity as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. I've got another indication from Councillor Andrew Dacey. Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. The city deal was announced 7 years ago. So what's the time scale in the spend? Obviously, we've been not slow, but we haven't started some of these projects. So the price of the buildings and everything's going through the roof. So should we sort of kick-start these quicker than we haven't? It's not a criticism. I just want to know why they haven't started yet, some of the projects.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you.
John,
Thank you, Councillor Dacey. From what I can add to the response is that whilst the budgets and details of the projects were set in 2017, we didn't receive funding approval for the Supporting Innovation Low Carbon Growth Programme until August of 21, and then the funding agreement between Carmarthenshire County Council and ourselves was signed the following year in 2022, which is when I started. So although it looks like it's been a long period of time, there have been sort of like steps that have to be taken in the interim to officially launch all of these activities. So that's why it seems it's been taking a long period of time. But I agree with you. I mean, it's difficult with a lot of these large projects when budgets are set so many years before the project starts, because we couldn't have foreseen the increased inflation, the increase in materials costs. Brexit has played a part, and also you've got the wars taking place as well, which is affecting material supply. So there are a number of contributing factors to this. I don't know if there's anything Simon or Lisa wants to add.
Yeah, I think with all of these projects as well, I mean, there's some quite long lead-in periods when you're working with partners and you're getting project agreements in place and you're getting final designs agreed, etc., and specifications. The technology centre was delivered very, very quickly because we'd actually jumped the gun a little bit on that one, because we had some other funding that we had to use within a set period of time. So I think it's not about necessarily about sort of being slow. It's about making sure that the projects are the right projects and they're developed in the right way as well, to make sure they got maximum impact.
Thank you for that, because it means it's a bit more sense it's 2 years old rather than 7 years old. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Do any other members have any questions on this item? Okay, can't see any indication, so I'll just ask one of my own, and then we can wrap this item up. It was in a specific question on the Holmes's Power Station project, and there's obviously 3 projects listed that have had funding awarded in the papers. I was curious around, for example, the Neath Workmen's Club project, what elements are being funded from that £300,000, because obviously I've seen the developments have been being promoted but by the social landlord, and I wasn't aware of any particular sort of green or environmental credentials to the project. So is this an additional element of the project that's being funded?
So all of the schemes that all of the applications that were put forward basically wouldn't have been HAPS houses without this funding. So the funding that's been allocated will enable the houses to be cleaner, greener and more cost effective. The specifics of that scheme I'll have to come back to you with. There's been 16 schemes approved that have got various details attached to them. So I'd have to come back to you with the specifics of what technology they'll be put in on that development.
That's no problem at all. There's been a request as well from members if the slides could be circulated following the meeting. So I think that would be very helpful if officers could do that. And yeah, we really appreciate, perhaps even on the 3 projects that have been funded there, Una, if we could have just a bit more sort of in-depth information for members to go over would be fantastic. Okay, I can't see any other indications I've said. So this item is for information. So we know the report, and DL, thank you again to officers for the presentation this morning.
Sure.
So I'll now move on to our next item, which is item 11, the Vehicle and Heavy Plant Fleet Procurement Programme, which is on pages 65 to 82. Before I go to questions, do officers have anything to add to the report?
Nothing further to add, Chair, at this time.
Thank you, Dave. So I have my first question from Councillor Cathy James. Cathy.
Thanks, Chair. I noticed from the procurement listing, a lot of the vehicles are being replaced on a like-for-like basis. I know in this committee we talked about the transition to zero-emission vehicles. Where we're replacing them with like-for-like, first of all, is this because zero-emission vehicles of that type are not available, or is it that they are available but they're prohibitively expensive? And then secondly, these replacement vehicles, what sort of lifespan are we anticipating for them? I'm trying to get a feel for what sort of delay this is putting on the transition to zero-emission vehicles. Thanks.
Thanks, Cathy. Who wants to pick this one up?
Thanks, Chair. If I pick this question up, and thanks, Councillor James, for the questions. Just to clarify, the life cycles currently stand for diesel replacements at 7 years for the refuse and recycling vehicles, and then we have a time slot of 5 years for short and mid-range sweepers due to the work that they carry out. So they get a bit of a hammering. But then for all other vehicles, they're 9 years for small, medium vans, for our lorries and our 4x4 pickups, for example, and our cars. So looking to the future, obviously, we'll be having to look at the life cycles again so that the vehicles are purchased over the life of the battery warranty on most vehicles, and that will vary depending upon the type of vehicle because of the significant cost at the moment of replacing batteries. So some are readily available on the market, others aren't. We are you'll know from previous reports that we're undertaking a fleet review, which will include now an assessment of the current and future life cycles in line with the transition programme. But in terms of small and medium vans, I'm pretty much online to have those all transferred over by, I think it's 2025, and Kevin's on the call and can say if I got that wrong. But in terms of the larger vehicles, obviously we are, particularly for the recycling vehicles, we're currently looking at the replacement of those with low emission vehicles. But both financially and the cost and availability of these vehicles are a factor that we also have to consider in parallel with the renewals programme. And we also look as well to see if we can secure specific grant funding streams to facilitate that transition as well. So I think I may have answered most of the points you raised, Cathy, but if there's anything else, you'll have to remind me.
No, I mean it gives an idea that, for example, for the refuse trucks, the ones that are being replaced now, we're not going to be looking at replacing those with something zero emissions for another 7 years. And the reason we're not doing it now is the lack of availability of that type of vehicle. Am I correct?
I think Mike has got his hand up. So Mike has been heavily involved in the procurement of the specification and procurement of the recycle. So Mike, would you like to come in and comment?
Yeah, just on the refuse freighters, we've trialed the ones that are available, and we just haven't found one yet that will work for our geographic circumstances. So obviously they're quite a bit bigger than the recycling vehicles, so 22 ton with sort of double the amount of content with all the compaction that goes on. And with all the sort of uphill and down dale that we've got, we just haven't found anything that's suitable for us at the moment. So there's this, you're starting to see some hydrogen refuse trucks starting to emerge, but it's still early days. There's a couple of manufacturers out there putting them out onto the market. So that may come in time, but of course it's about having the supply of green hydrogen, and a significant supply of green hydrogen, because you know they will get through quite a lot of gas.
Thanks, Mike. I see Kevin's indicating as well. Do you want to add to that?
Thank you, Chair. Just to add for Councillor James, from Dave's initial assessment, the target of 2025 is for car and light vans, which we quite well on target to achieve. The difficulty we get in at the moment with other medium to heavy vans, which is mostly what's on this next year's renewals programme, is that there's issues with payload for especially the type of functions that they're supposed to be carrying out, like building services, when they carry in tools, a lot of tools and equipment, a lot of products to help with their day-to-day workloads as well, all the electrician, cabling, piping for plumbers, etc. So it is quite difficult really when we're trying to get the payload on, when there's increased weights on batteries and so on, and they're not quite there yet with certain vehicle types. 4x4 is another example as well. There's nothing really on the market for us to transition to 4x4s at this point in time, but also as well we've got an aging fleet which we need to kind of address now, and obviously part of the review now we'll be looking at the life cycles, and perhaps that's something that can be picked up in that review as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Do we have any other indications from members on this one? Did you have a question, Councillor Dacey? Andrew?
Yeah. What do we do with our own vehicles if they're not leased? You've got ride-on mowers and smaller vehicles. Do we sell them, or do we give them away to voluntary organisations that might use them, or are they leased? I just not sure what we do with the old vehicles.
I'll take this, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Dacey. Yeah, just in response to that, we, in line with the audit processes that we've got to conform with, all vehicles and light plant and heavy plant go to auctions. Some of them are local as well. So basically, we'll get a valuation of 2 or 3 different auction houses, select the best in line with our processes, and then they sold at auction then, and the money that we get back then goes back into the various pots or back to the sections to offset some of the uplift costs of new vehicles.
Right, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Kev. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bowen, Tim, did you have a question on leased versus owned vehicles, I believe?
Yeah, Sean. It was just basically what's the ratio of owned vehicles to leased or rented?
Do you want to take that, Kev, or shall I?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Bowen. Yeah, very, very small proportion of the fleet are on contract hire. We only do that on shorter term contracts. There's only about 3% of the whole overall fleet. So roughly about 12 vehicles we've got on the 3 to 4 year contract hire agreement.
Yeah, we've got about 305 vehicles in the fleet at the moment, Councillor Bowen, and as Kevin said, they vary about 10 or 12 vehicles.
Yeah, so we own the majority of the fleet. They're all our assets. Yeah, so, you know, I know we also look after Sutra's vehicles. They tend to use more of the contract hire and the leasing, simply because they didn't have any assets or budget available at the time when they came over. So, but yeah, you know, it's very, very small proportion.
Lovely, thank you.
Fantastic, thanks. Were there any other indications or questions from members on this item? I can't see any. Just one sort of. Oh, there we are, Kathy.
Yeah, sorry, just come back in briefly to say thanks for the extra information that was provided, and it's good to hear that the reason that we're not making more progress towards zero emission vehicles isn't for a lack of trying, it's for a lack of availability of the equipment that we need. And it's frustrating that as a council we're trying to do the right thing and we're trying to do what we're supposed to be doing and transitioning to zero emissions, but the technology just isn't there yet. But hopefully in 7 years' time it'll all be a lot easier. So yeah, thanks for your efforts, everyone.
Thanks, Kathy. That just leads nicely into the comment I was going to make. Is just obviously we get these reports sort of on a regular basis now in terms of vehicle procurement. I think it would be helpful for members if there was just an explanation column where we are replacing them like for like to say why. It would, I think it just, that's a lot of the questions came up in pre-briefing and today. And I think if it's a cost issue or a a suitable vehicle issue, I think that would just be really helpful for future reports.
Noted, Chair.
Thank you. So this item, the recommendations are listed on page 69 of the Cabinet Agenda Pack. Could I have a proposer and a seconder, please?
Propose, Chair.
Councillor Tim Bowen, thank you. And a seconder?
I'll second.
Councillor Kathy James, thank you. So members, if you do not indicate to the contrary, I'll take it this decision is supported to Cabinet.
I see no indications to the contrary, Chair. Therefore, this decision is supported to Cabinet.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll move on now to item 12, which is the Public Space Protection Order, Aberafan Beach and Promenade, pages 83 to 186. Officers, do you wish to add anything to the report before I go to questions from members?
Nothing to add, Chair. Just to say that my colleague James Davis, the Neighbourhood Services Manager, is with us, and be happy to take any questions that the members have.
Fantastic, thank you, James. So I have indication from Councillor Rob Wood to begin with. Rob.
Thanks, Chair. It's just a statement more than a question, really, to say that the Public Space Protection Order is cyclical, as we know. It comes round to this committee very often. There have been issues in the past where we've looked at access to the beach. If people can't, go on the beach part, how can they get to the other part? We've solved that in the past by, people can go down the first set of steps, turn right, etc. And, I support the Public Space Protection Order because I think when it comes to consultation specifically, those with a vested interest will respond to the consultation, but the people we're trying to protect here, the young children who want to use the beach, unharassed by dogs off the lead, they are the ones who won't respond to the consultation. So, I think we've got to look at it in that way and we've got to leave it in place, and I fully support it. Thanks.
Thank you, Rob. I have another indication from Councillor Laura Williams. Laura.
Thanks, Chair. I also support the PSPO staying in situ. I am just going to ask a question around something else. So I note from the consultation responses that a number of comments were relating to disability and impairments, some of which are listed under the exemptions for A to F. I understand the need to not encourage the general population to breach this PSPO. However, what extent are these exemptions being communicated to those with legitimate exemptions?
Thanks, Laura. James?
Thanks, Councillor. Good morning, everyone. It's a good question. We've obviously advertised on the access points to the beach at the moment for guide dogs. And in terms of support dogs and assistant dogs, we've had queries in the past where we've received them, and sometimes coming from schools in terms of autistic children who've got support dogs. And then what we've done is we've sort of asked them, have you got an idea of when you're going to be there? And we've made officers aware. We have looked at advertising that more widely, but we've got issues then in terms of enforcement, if that's actually indicated on the beachfront itself. Because if somebody turned around and said, I've got a support dog, we've got no real means of actually disproving that. And if we did try to do that, then they are actually a support dog. Then obviously we could be heavily criticised as well. What I've spoken to the team, and I think we're going to try and reach out to, I think there's 13 approved UK approved assistant dog organisations. So we're going to reach out to them just to find out exactly what it is that they is there a passport or a scheme that they've got that they can hold a card to say that we've got an approved assistant dog, a support dog, and we'll see what comes of that.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much for the information.
Yeah, no, thanks as one of the local members as well for the CFA. I appreciate that response, James. I think it was a good question from Laura, and I kind of appreciate the concerns of how you sort of advertise and promote and manage the signage. But I think perhaps starting with those organisations would be a good starting point. Absolutely. Did any other members have any questions on this item? No. Okay, so just another brief comment from me really as well. I support the PSPO in principle, and again I appreciate the lengthy and extensive consultation officers carried out this time. I know it was something that I was quite keen to take place. There's a lot of public interest in this PSPO from dog walkers and beach users, and I appreciate the consideration given as well to perhaps the time limits and the early mornings and evenings, and obviously I know the decision recommended today is to continue as previously, but I appreciate that officers did take on board those concerns and how they could have been implemented, but obviously the decision has been that that's not quite practical at the moment. But I just wanted to pass on my thanks and appreciation there. I can see I got an indication from Councillor Dacey. Andrew.
Thank you, Sean. I totally agree with the PSPO, but I think we need more enforcement officers down there, because that's what we want. You want people to be deterred from dogs that are unscrupulous dog owners. When you walk along some of the steps, it's like Shane Williams sidestepping down there. So we just need more enforcement. I don't know if there's any scope to have more enforcement officers there. And it's 12 months of the year, because they use the beach no matter what the weather. There's always loads down there. So I think we need more enforcement officer, in my opinion. Thanks,
Councillor Dacey. We've got a relatively small team, and obviously it's one of our priorities in neighbourhood in terms of waste enforcement generally. Obviously we've got a number of others as well. But what we will be doing with the resource we've got is we will be doing some sort of focus. I think we did 2 last year as well, focus enforcement activities where we spend a large part of a week during the summer months down there when the PSPOs are in place, just to make sure that we are focusing our efforts down there. But obviously it is one part of obviously the whole borough in terms of which we've got to cover with our team. But we'll do our best.
Thank you.
Thanks, James. I can't see any other indications from members or officers on this item, so I'll take us to the recommendations which are listed on page 92 of the Cabinet Agenda Pack. Could I have a proposer and a seconder, please?
I'll propose.
Councillor Williams,
Happy
thank
to
you.
second.
Second by Councillor
I'll
Rob Wood.
second.
Brilliant,
I'm
thanks. Okay, if members do not indicate to the contrary, then I'll take it this decision is supported to Cabinet.
I see no indications to the contrary, Chair. Therefore, this decision is supported to Cabinet.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I'll take us back now to the scrutiny agenda. Agenda item 5, which is urgent items, and I have none. And then to agenda item 6, which is the forward work programme on pages 11 to 12. This item's just for noting. As usual, if members have any questions or items they wish to put forward for the forward work programme, you can get in touch with myself, Tim or Tom at any time to put those forward. And I can't see any indications from members. And then, as previously indicated, we're no longer scrutinising the private item as that's been withdrawn from the cabinet papers. So that brings us to the end of today's agenda. So I just need to thank everybody again. Diolch yn fawr, thank you. And well, thank you all for your attendance.